drive. Tatum the finish. It is banner 18. The mission commanded is mission accomplished.
What's up, everyone? This is Noa Dalzell, and we're here with another episode of You Got Boston. And I'm here with my former coworker, Jack Simone, who is now with Hardwood Houdini, previously at Celtics blog. Is that's out, right? That's public knowledge.
Hardwood Houdini, yeah. I've worked there for a month. Yeah, it's public knowledge. Hardwood Houdini, yeah.
I feel like you didn't do a big announcement, you know.
I did it on Twitter.
You know me, I always do my big announcement. No, you stuck it in there. But
I'm not a social media guy. I leave that to the professionals like you. I'm not built like that.
I know. Well, we have a couple things we're going to talk about today. I wanted to share a little bit of an update from the event in Rhode Island earlier this week with Joe Mazzulla. Not too in depth because Bob Manning and I already did a stand up on that one, but just to give you guys some context, it was pretty cool. Joe was at the Rhode Island State Capitol celebrating the championship parade. I wrote a story about that for Celtics blog. You can check that out. For me, it was personally cool because I used to lobby at the Rhode Island State Capitol. Because for some of you know, I was previously a full-time lobbyist and now I do this full-time, which is fun. So it was cool. I recognized a lot of like the legislators in the crowd. But I was like, I hope that we don't have to talk. So it's not, it doesn't feel like I'm like too mixed up with everything, but it was a very cool event, beautiful day. And Joe just seemed really, really happy to be able to celebrate this championship alongside his family and friends in Rhode Island. I talked to his aunt, his cousin. They were really funny and like really cool. Like I was like hanging out with his aunt and his cousin, and I was like, I would be friends with this girl like in real life. So it was definitely a cool event. We didn't get to talk to him, but he did speak to the crowd and just shared like how meaningful it was because he was really raised by the Rhode Island community and all of that. And then Joe also I'll just plug, he did a one-on-one interview with John Corrales at Locked On Celtics, which some of you might know is my all-time favorite Celtics podcast. So no offense, Jack.
It's fine. I get it. No, it's fine. Yeah, that's fine. I get it.
It's you know how I feel about it. So yeah, check that out as well. Those are my two plugs. But I have Jack here today because we're going to do a little Celtics season preview, but award style. Because I think that, as you all know, this is as dead as it gets as far as the Celtics offseason. We really did have like a lot going on for a while there between the finals and then right to the draft. That turnaround I really didn't like. I feel like that was way too quick. To the point where like I'm the first to admit I did not have enough time to research those guys. And then right to Summer League, which we were both at, and that was a cool experience to get to know some of those players. And then right from there to the Olympics. And so that was, all the narratives that came with that. So there really hasn't been a slow moment, but between now and the 24th.
Yeah, it's been pretty dead for like the last week or two. Like there's just been nothing going on after the Olympics. And I mean, it's kind of nice because like I feel like for the first few days you're like, oh, now I get to breathe a little bit. Then you're like, I just want to watch and talk about basketball again. Like I'm over it already. Like it's such a quick, I just needed a week and then bring the season back. But now we've got like training camp starts up soon enough. So I guess that'll give some entertainment, but we still got like over a month and a half at least until regular season basketball, which not fun. I need it now. I need it very, very quickly.
I know. I am excited for training camp, especially because now there's like the Lonnie Walker story, which by now you've probably, those of you that follow CLNS and just follow Celtics media in general, you've probably seen 25 Lonnie Walker podcasts. So I don't even think we should talk about Lonnie Walker because that has been heavily discussed. And honestly, I think it's a little bit of a mystery, like why he's in this position. And we're all kind of speculating, but we'll probably get a better sense in the next few weeks. Like if there's something about him that has made teams want to pass up on him, or what I maintain, I think he might have just played his cards wrong. The same way that like O'Shea Brissett might have as well, where you maybe just didn't make the right moves earlier in the offseason and now you're in a predicament in September. Who knows? I don't know.
Yeah,
is that your take or do you have a different perspective on it?
I think Lonnie Walker's fine. I don't think he's a great fit on the Celtics in particular. Like, I just don't know. Like everyone's talking about, oh, he's this great shooter, but like the Celtics already have shooters and you can't have enough shooting, but everyone's taking our comment section the first day when it happened was like, oh, they can trade Pritchard now. I'm like, guys, like I get it. I get getting excited for somebody that they just signed, but it almost feels like to me, like as much as it could be like a Dennis Schroeder or Shea Brissett, like they just waited too long and the money dried up situation for Lonnie Walker. Like there's also a reason that other guys got chosen over him at the end of the day. And so I think he could contribute, but I guess I'm not as high on him as some other people are. I know you're pretty high on Lonnie Walker, and we've had discussions about it, but I'd love for it to work out. I think there's a chance Lonnie, like I think the ceiling is great with Lonnie Walker. I think he could score, obviously. I think he's a good shooter. I think he could do all that stuff with the bench of the Celtics. But if you're Boston, you're going to play Pritchard over him, you're going to play Hauser over him, you're going to play all these guys over him, and you don't really, like, at the end of the day, like, there were all these rumblings at the trade deadline last year, like, oh, they could be interested in Lonnie Walker, blah, blah, blah. And then they traded for Springer. And Sam and I talked about this on How About Them Celtics. He's like, well, there's a reason they doubled back. And I was like, well, what if they chose Springer over him? Like, what if it wasn't, oh, we couldn't get a deal done? What if it was, we could have Lonnie Walker or Jaden Springer? And they're like, oh, we like the upside of Springer, Lonnie Walker. So it just, I think it'd be cool. I think it's going to be very interesting to see how he does in the preseason. And I think the chances of him making the roster wholly depends on how well he plays during the preseason and training camp and how well they fit in with the roster. Me too, because it's like all eyes. He has more eyes on him than any training camp player in the NBA right now, 100%.
Which is so wild. It's also especially because there's nobody new for us to watch at training camp. Like Porzingis won't be playing, so there's not going to be that. Plus, I think fans have relaxed a little bit on him. Like they know it's going to be a little while. There was a moment in time there where I feel like every practice and shoot around that we showed up to, it was just, can you see Porzingis? Is he in the room? Like, is he crossing is he on his phone walking by the gym? You know, it was like, that's all everybody cared about. And I feel like that's going to be set aside for a bit. And then other than that, it's like going to be the same old guys. I know there's going to be stuff around the Olympics for sure. There's going to be questions around that, but I don't think it's going to last that long because like, how much can you talk about it? You know,
I hope not.
After the first, all the main guys are going to get a question about it. I mean, some of them have already been asked about it, like offline, like in other places, like the Krause's podcast, and Drew Holiday was asked about it at that Raising Cane's event that we were at. And so there's certain people have talked about it, but there's going to be like Jaylen Brown's he's going to have a lot to talk about. But Jaylen Brown just in general, like his summer, that's going to be a whole thing.
He's been everywhere.
Everything that he's done, the rap career, the Twitter hacking that he still hasn't figured out. So he's been busy. But yeah, Lonnie Walker will be the story, I think, just because he's really one of the only fresh faces. And plus, like the Summer League guys we had at Summer League. So like how many times have we talked to like Baylor Scheinman and Anton Watson in like a 2-week period? You know, so he'll be the main event, which is funny to say considering it's a championship team and he's on an Exhibit 10. But yeah, so what we're going to do today is go through like Celtics awards. So naming who each of us predict will be the MVP next year, the most improved player next year, the sixth man of the year, defensive player of the year, and clutch player of the year. And that's just for the Celtics. So like we're going to pick from the guys that are currently under contract next year. And we'll see. Jack and I haven't talked about our selections yet. So we'll see if we agree. I hope we disagree on some of these. We haven't had a good old-fashioned argument in like a few solid weeks, you know. I'd be happy to argue about something.
We'll see.
So I'm trying to think. Maybe we should start. Let's do MVP last.
Okay.
Even though I have a feeling we have the same person for this.
Yeah, probably. But
let's do. Okay, let's start with clutch player of the year because that's the most like big. Like I didn't even remember this was an award initially. What is this like? This is like the third year that they've done clutch player of the year, right?
Yeah, who's
De'Aaron Fox, Steph Curry. That's it, I think.
I think it's just been two. What a wild first two winners too. Like obviously Curry makes sense, but De'Aaron Fox winning, but the inaugural really clutch player of the year
that year. Yeah, and then I know last year he didn't have anything clutch about him. I don't think so.
It's weird.
So clutch player of the year to me, this one was a no-brainer. I'll let you say it first. Since you have a guess.
See, so I was originally going to say Jaylen Brown. I was going to say Jaylen for my answer at first, and then you said something that like triggered another thought process that has me debating changing my answer. You were like, "Oh, De'Aaron Fox was only clutch that year, and he didn't do much last year," because like realistically, it is so like being the clutch player is so predicated on getting the shots, like getting the clutch shots and making them right, like. Jason Tatum could take 10 clutch shots and make one and nobody thinks about it. Derek White could get 3, make 2. Make 2. And like, then he's the clutch player. You know what I'm saying? So it turns on that. I'm going to go Jaylen though. I think during the playoffs, you really saw it for JB. Like a lot of those games in the Pacer series and the Mavs series in particular, like they get to the end of the game and it's close, whether or not it should be close, like whether or not the Celtics blew a lead or whatever. Like you see him hitting these big time mid-range shots. Even in the regular season last year, like he got one chance. I think he didn't get many clutch shot opportunities because Tatum got most of them. And the one was like the Pacers one where Buddy Hield hit him on the head and they called nothing, blah, blah, blah. Obviously he hit the clutchest shot of the season, arguably in the conference finals against the Pacers. So it just makes sense to me. I feel like he's one of the better shot makers in the league, like tough shot makers at this point. And I think after what you saw in the finals, not only should the Celtics be more comfortable letting JB take some of the shots, but I think Tatum should be too, because it's clear that he can. And I feel like at the end of the day, he might be better suited to hit those types of shots than Tatum is anyways.
Yeah, I think that's a great pick. And it was funny, when you just said he hit the clutchest shot of the year. I actually had a different shot in mind than the one you said. I had the one in game 3 in the finals where they were totally losing composure. That's the one where Deuce afterwards in the locker room was like, we almost lost. I remember sitting there. I can't remember. I don't think we were sitting next to each other that game, but I was sitting there being like, where it was on the brink of like, if they go up 3-0, they're winning the championship pretty much. 2, if they lose this game, now they're 1 game away from it being tied. And we've seen plenty of teams come back from being down 2-0. I felt like those 2 minutes at the end of that game 3 really like, their legacies were really cemented there. And I remember seeing post game, like Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown walk out, and you could just see like they had won the championship. And that's why game 4 I felt like was a little overreacted. But he had that, it was like a mid-range shot. And there was like a minute to go, but they just couldn't score. Yeah. Like they were just turning the ball over and nothing was going in. And then he kind of stopped the bleeding there. So he had, I would say, like this past playoff run, like he was the no-brainer pick. I have a different pick though for clutch player of the year for next year. And it's not Jaylen Brown and it's not Jason Tatum. It's Derek White. And I think Derek White's the one like hang up that I had when making that pick was the fact that he just doesn't get as many looks down the stretch, like down by 1 with 30 seconds to go. Is he going to get the play? Like, I don't think they're going to run things for him, but I think we've seen now that both Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are comfortable passing out in those moments and increasingly so. And there was like the game that they won the Eastern Conference Finals, like Derek White is one that hit the 3 there. Throughout the entire season, it felt like every time there was a big 3-pointer, Derek White nailed it, right? And I don't know what his stat ended up being at the end of the year, but there was a point where he was hitting like 60% of his 3-pointers in clutch time on the NBA season. And so I feel like that's going to continue. Even then in the Olympics, I felt like when he checked in, like, I mean, just showing up on the Olympic team, having not been there for training camp, coming in and like hitting your first couple 3-pointers, like he just has something about him where he just stays so steady and the defense can't overreact to him because there's just too much talent on the roster. So he's my pick, but it was a close one because I think Jaylen Brown earned it from his play last year. I just think Derek we have a big sample size of just how clutch he is in those moments. Yeah,
Derek White hit, I have the stat here, just reset, 12 of 23 from 3 in the clutch in the regular season. So he was definitely pretty clutch in those moments. And he was the guy I was going back and forth on when I had like my dilemma before I said Jaylen Brown. And it was because of the Raptors games. He hit like the same exact 3-point shot against the Raptors twice to like bury them. I forget who passed it to him, but it was like identical shots, identical timing, identical situations. And he just buried the Raptors both times. So I think that's a good pick. I think Tatum obviously could be it too, just because of the volume. And like realistically, if he makes like 3 of those shots, it's a completely different narrative around him. But he didn't last year. And so I'm gonna I think Jaylen is the safer pick after what we saw in the playoffs.
Yeah, that would be a tough pick to make. That would be like I'm looking into the horoscope and I think
bounce
like
back, yeah,
because we didn't see that last year.
No.
What we did see is in the playoffs an increasing willingness to not settle for that shot that we all hate, the double team fade away, running the clock down. Like we didn't see much of that in the playoffs, and I feel like there was a narrative all season that the Celtics can't win during the regular season, and then obviously in the playoffs. The Celtics can't win clutch games in the regular season. And that was like the big thing that we were all concerned about. I mean, that was really my only hang up on this team was like, what happens when it's a close game down the stretch? And then they literally won every single close game throughout the playoffs. And so, wouldn't have been able to predict it, but it wasn't because all of a sudden Tatum turned into like a clutch shot maker. It was more because everybody else, he was willing to give it up to other people and they were always finding the right shot, whether it was Al Horford or whether it was Jaylen or whatever it was. So yeah, but those are 2 good picks, and we're gonna hear from our friends over at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. Prize Picks is the easiest way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. All you have to do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks is the best way to get action on sports in most states, including California, Texas, and Georgia. Prize Picks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy. so that your lineups stay in play. Even if one of your players gets injured, if your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Picks, your picks are still alive. So right now, if you're watching games, if you're watching basketball, different sports, the injury insurance thing, that can be a lot of fun. That has already benefited me in the past as well. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. So let's go to Defensive Player of the Year as the next pick. I think this one is actually really tough for me because I feel like whenever I think about Celtics defense, there's a couple different ways you could look at it. But again, I'll let you go first. I already have my mind solidified. I'm not going to be persuaded.
Yeah, this is hard because the Celtics play such a team-oriented style of defense, and it's not like Rudy Gobert's Jazz teams. He won Defensive Player of the Year because those Jazz teams were not good at defense, but he was such a force inside that he changed everything. The same can be said for a million other defensive players. The Celtics team's not that, right? They have good defenders up and down the roster, so it's realistically just going to come down to who makes the most big plays, kind of who shuts down the most stars on any given night, blah blah blah, stuff like that. And Porzingis is out. I think Horford's actually going to be a lot more important than people realize. Same with Tillman and them, but I don't think it's as big of a role to the point where you could give him this award. I feel like it's so obvious for me as the Derek White guy to do it, but I'm going to do it anyways. I'm just going to pick Derek White because it's Derek White, right? He is one of the most unique defenders in the league from the perspective of he's so good at guarding bigs as a skinny guard. He has perfected the chase down block from behind in the half court. The way he stays in front of guys, smaller guards in the perimeter, I think is really impressive. I think Jrue Holiday, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum even would be awesome picks as well, but I'm going to go Derek White. I just think he could end up having the most big time plays and big time moments for the Celtics this year, and I think he's going to be en route to another all defensive team.
It's a good pick. I went with Jrue Holiday. I think for me, the three selections and beyond just this exercise of thinking about next year, I genuinely, when I think about the Celtics deserve some players on the all defense team, who are those players? And obviously Jaylen Brown really wanted to be on that team and he wasn't. And at the time I was okay, if you look at his all around defense, night in, night out, I get why he wasn't one of the 10 guys that were selected. He does make mistakes. He's not as good of an off-ball team defender. But then when you see in the finals, what he did to Luka and what he did just throughout the finals, throughout the playoffs, when he would just match up with someone and really take them out of their element, it's he's really the only guy in the roster that could do that, to that level with his size and with his athleticism. And also just he's really in his prime of all that. So he was a tempting selection, but I went with Jrue because I think when you think about his value from a team perspective, I don't know that any one player has as big of a team defensive impact. And so it's tough because Derek gets most of the highlight plays. I think Jaylen gets the tough one-on-one matchups just because he is guard, he's in the position that usually the best NBA players are, the forward type players that are a little bit longer, a little bit taller. But I still think Jrue has the edge just because of what he's able to do and just the way that he's able to correct other people's mistakes. And there's so often where you see somebody cheat or somebody goes backdoor and Jrue just fixes that. And I feel from a basketball player standpoint, whenever I play basketball, I start to think about it more through that lens because I'm thinking hey, people don't even really realize, but this person just cleaned up 4 people's mess. And I feel that doesn't show up on the stat sheet as much. It's not going to get as much credit. And then, there's moments where he does, when he got that steal on, Aaron Nesmith and secure was game 3, I believe. He does have those plays, but ultimately I think he doesn't have as much of them. But he was my pick, but I was tempted to say Jaylen Brown just because I feel being able to do what he does with one-on-one, it changes the game. And then obviously Derek too. It's a tough one, but I'll go with Jrue.
I think ironically, I was between Derek White and Jason Tatum for my pick, as you were between Jaylen Brown and Jrue Holiday for your pick. And I feel most people would be why Jason Tatum? Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
The reason why is because the Cavs series in the Eastern Conference semifinals, because that protection. I'm not saying close, but when Al Horford was on the bench and when they were running Jason Tatum at center, basically, he was just going to switch on to Evan Mobley. He was coming over to switch from the corner and playing rim protector role. He can do it. He's 6'9", right? Long arms, lengthy defender. I'm not saying he's going to get down there and bang down low with Embiid and Jokic and them. He's just not. He's not built like that. Nobody is. But I think you're going to see Jason Tatum tap into a more versatile defensive I don't know what the role this season with Porzingis out, especially considering now he knows Jalen and Derek and Drew like are fully capable of contributing to the offense, winning a championship. I feel like he could tap into that a bit more this year. So I'm very high on Tatum's defensive ceiling this year, but I still think Derek White is going to get a lot of those highlight plays in terms of like game winning, game impacting situations throughout the year more consistently than Tatum will.
That's a good point. I guess the thing is, I was thinking about it a little too much in the frame of like who's currently the defensive player of the year, because I didn't think there was going to be that much change. But I guess there is room for like someone to make a leap. Like Jaylen Brown made a huge leap on the defensive end this year. I don't know that Tatum did as much considering his career. I feel like he was probably better than he was in years prior. But Jaylen Brown made a more noticeable leap. Maybe Tatum's due for one.
Yes, I agree.
So we'll see. And especially, I mean, we'll see about the shooting thing. But if the shooting struggles continue, like, he's going to have to make up for it in other places.
You better tap into that defense, buddy, if that's going to keep up. I will say it is crazy that we discussed defensive player of the year and we had 4 different even potential options. Like, that's just a testament to how good the Celtics are.
I feel like for this whole award series, the fact that there are so many good options for each of these,
it
does kind of highlight, like, for some teams, it would be really obvious. Like, this is the MVP. This is the obvious sixth man. You know, I actually didn't feel like any of these selections were super straightforward to me. But let's go to sixth man of the year. Should I just keep letting you go first? I kind of like this flow.
I think I'm going to steal your thunder, so I feel like maybe you go first for this one because I worry I could steal your thunder. Okay. Do you want me to go first then? Okay. Never mind. Okay.
And that's not who you had. I know.
No,
everybody thinks I'm not. It was a close one, but I think that Sam Hauser has made a big leap in the past year, but I actually think he's about to make another massive leap. Just because we started seeing just more from him offensively, but very small glimpses. So like, I don't think it's really come to fruition yet. But I could see him being a double figure scorer off the bench. And I don't know that I could see Pritchard being that. And a lot of times sixth man of the year kind of gets a little bit dumbed down to that. So Pritchard will always be the guy, at least like for right now, maybe not always, but he's the guy that runs the show and really kind of manages that second unit. But I don't know that he's always the guy that's going to receive the most credit for it or the most points. And I think Sam Hauser has the potential to really like produce a lot this year, especially because he's shown that he can stay on the court during big moments, like in the finals. Pritchard didn't even really play in the last game. Sam Hauser was a key part of that team and it hit like half of his 3-pointers and was just great off the bench. So I'm very high on both of them currently and in the future. I think Sam Hauser is going to have an even bigger weight lifted off the shoulder that he has this contract now. I feel like for shooters and just for bench players in general, knowing that your financial future is secure, like it does take a load off. And Pritchard had that this past year, and you could see that it made things a little bit easier. But he was my sixth man of the year pick.
I was between the two, and I ended up on Pritchard, so I was worried I was going to steal your guy there. But I think there's room for both of them to grow. I am intrigued to see if the Celtics give Peyton Pritchard more ball handling opportunities, because for as much as he got last year, he was still largely like catch and shoot guy, get a stand deep behind the 3-point line, really space the floor and let guys drive inside. I think giving Pritchard the ball more and letting him run more than just the second unit could do wonders for the Celtics team. I know you love Pritchard too, but I think he's so much better than even a lot of people realize in terms of his ability to organize the offense, create for himself. Obviously, he's never going to be an amazing defender. He hustles, right? He tries. He's fine on that end. I think he holds up better than people expect him to. But just being a small guard, you're never going to be, this A+ tier defender, whatever. But I think his ability to run the offense, make plays, and create for himself and others should encourage Joe Mazzulla and the Celtics to give him more opportunities, especially considering like Drew Holiday's 34. He's not going anywhere anytime soon, but like you never know any given day. Like if they win another championship, maybe Drew's like, all right, I want to spend time with my family. Right. And I'm not saying he's going to do that. He just signed an extension. It sounds like he's going to be involved in for a while, but I feel like elevating Peyton Pritchard and even like down the line, like Jaden Springer, like seeing what you got in him is a testament to, we want to make this more than just a 3-year window where we can win a title. We want to elevate these guys. And I think giving Pritchard more responsibilities next season could be a way to do that. So I think he could make another leap similar to Hauser.
And I do really hope, like you said, that this year during the regular season, like they do tap in, Joe and the coaching staff do tap into some of those bench guys a little bit more and I think they will, just because you have a finals run in the Olympics under your belt, like, and Drew Holiday, like you said, played a lot of minutes. And so, yeah, I think they both are a strong case to me. I think they're both going to improve and they're both going to play a really critical role for the Celtics team. Even though there are other bench pieces that could jump in there, like I feel like those two guys now, they're pretty proven. Like it's not much of a question mark. You've seen them for an entire playoff run. I love the way like Hauser bounced back from a bad shooting series and then had the final series that he had. I felt like that showed a lot about him as a person too. Like the fact that he was able to be so resilient and then on the brightest stage, like was so effective. But yeah, okay. We got two more here. We got most improved and MVP. I almost wanted to do coach of the year and like pick an assistant, but it's a little too.
We can. Do you want to? That's fine. Why not? It's your show. You do whatever you want.
Here's my thing though with the coaches, and like I was on the Big Three podcast with Sherrod and Gary and Kwani yesterday, and we were talking about like what we want to see from Joe and like what kind of improvements Mazzulla can make. And my thing with just talking about coaches is I always struggle because I feel like it's so speculative, like what we actually know about the coaches. Like I know who's really nice from the assistant coaches. I know who has some responsibilities. And I know you did a lot of research on the assistants last year and like kind of the stories of how they got there, the player development coaches. But I still feel like it's really hard to gauge like who is responsible for what strategically. Like we don't even really know who the scouts were for each series. Like that has been that was not disclosed. So that's my thing was like I would love to be able to say like this is going to be the coach. But a lot of times it's just going off like vibes, and you can pick up on stuff. I do think like you can pick up on Charles Lee and Drew Holiday's relationship just based on being there pregame and like how they were literally like this, you know, they were, and you can pick up on the fact that Jermaine Buckner was clearly like really becoming more and more comfortable and had a bigger role. And like then later on in summer league, like I think DJ McClay said like he was the guy that grew the most and obviously got an assistant job. So you can pick up on little things, but it's just hard from our vantage point. I wish we had more access to like watch practice and then we could say like, this was happening. But by the time we get to practice, it's like who's participating in the trick shots drills with Derek White.
I love the trick shot drills though. You won't hear me complaining about that. I like watching, but yeah, I mean,
want to do a story on them.
It would be fun. You said that you said that in the playoffs last year. You've been working on that story for months now. You've been saying that.
I know.
No, the only access we have is like watching pregame in them, and that's really only the player development guys. So like we never really get to see like Sam Cassell as much or Emil Jefferson or half these guys do like a lot of the stuff they do. So it's a very small window we get to watch them work with players, and I feel like that doesn't even come close to telling the whole story. So you just don't really know. I
love going to events right now. It's football season. I love going to football games, concerts, really any events. Living in Boston, you can just put in any event into the Game Time app, and you can get the best prices guaranteed. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. So all you have to do is figure out what it is you want to attend. For example, I'm looking right now to get tickets for my family for opening night for the Celtics. So I can search that game in, browse through the seats on Game Time Picks. I can already see there's lots of great deals. There are super deals, different tiers of deals. And basically, as I'm looking, I'm able to actually see what the actual perspective of the court is from that particular seats. I have to make sure I don't want to get them seats that are in the balcony that are too far away. I can see what the court view is going to look like from those seats. So that way I'm able to choose without just looking at a seat number, which maybe doesn't mean anything to me. I'm able to see right away that this is a seat that I want to buy for my family members for opening night so that they can see the ring ceremony and the banner raising and all that fun stuff. So Game Time Picks makes curation much easier. It makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. It's all in pricing, so you can use this feature to see the total upfront price. So there's no fees at the checkout. So the price that it says is the price that it is. You get the panoramic view. You get a lowest price guarantee for Game Time. So if you find a lower price elsewhere, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. And there's Game Time ticket coverage. So your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. So we're going to do most improved next, and I'll have you go first, Jack. I think there was a lot of worthy candidates, and I viewed it as more about opportunity, like who I think will have the opportunity to improve. But I'll let you share your pick first.
Listen, anybody who listens to How About Them Celtics knows my answer for this. If Xavier Tillman has 100 fans, I'm one of them. If Xavier Tillman has 5 fans, I'm one of them. If Xavier Tillman has 1 fan, I'm him. If he has none, I'm dead. Right? Xavier Tillman stock. I'm buying it. I love Xavier Tillman. I think he is. I don't think the Celtics could have found a better potential Al Horford replacement in the NBA than Xavier Tillman. I think he is one of the most impressive switchable defenders they have on the roster already. I think his 3-point shot is real, and I think he's going to get a chance to show that off next season. I think he's going to get a ton of opportunities with Kristaps Porzingis out, and I think you already saw the start of that in the finals. Like, they needed an extra bench guy. They didn't go to Canada. They didn't go to Cornette. They went to Xavier Tillman, right? Like, they said, okay, this is the guy we're going to trust. This is the guy we're going to go to with KP out. He's going to be the next big up in the rotation. And Joe Mazzulla is so big on trust that I think he earned a lot of that in the finals. He earned a lot of that over the course of his small time with the Celtics. And so you give him an entire training camp. You give him his first full season in Boston after getting here at the trade deadline. I think he's going to be phenomenal next year on offense and defense. And I think he's going to be a seamless fit. So give me all the Xavier Tillman stock in the world. I'm all in. I need it.
Is that how I'm supposed to say his name? Xavier?
Xavier Tillman. I'm not sure. I pronounce
there's Xavier and there's Xavier.
That's a good question. Let me go to Basketball Reference.
That's
I
like how
could
when
be
I realized
wrong.
I was saying Nemish Keita wrong the entire season.
Nemish Keita.
I was saying
It
Nemai.
says pronunciation Xavier Tillman. You're right. It's just Xavier. It's just Xavier Tillman.
Xavier. Okay. Well,
yeah.
Spoiler alert: mine is Nemish Keita. He was my selection for this award. There are other people that I think are going to improve a lot. I wanted to pick Jaden Springer because I was really high on him from Summer League. I also just really like his game. I love guys like that are defensively minded guards that are clearly like who would already be an elite NBA defender. But just looking at the roster, I don't know that he's going to get an opportunity to showcase that improvement. If he was on another team, I think I would probably buy some of his stock. But I don't know that unless somebody gets really injured, like someone's out for an extended period of time, which obviously I hope is not the case, then I don't know that Jaden Springer is going to have that opportunity. On the flip side, like you said, there's going to be an opportunity in the front court. And I do think that they're going to be very cautious with Porzingis coming back. And I was between thinking about the front court. I don't think Luke's going to make any jumps. Like, I think Luke is Luke and he's what he is and it's great and he plays his part well, but there's no reason to think like this year he's going to make a massive leap. But then you have, Nemish Keita and you have Xavier Tillman as the other two guys that are in the mix, in that trio that re-signed to serve on the bench. And I just think we really didn't see much with Nemi last year. Like, he played, there was that road trip and, around Christmas time that he was actually like a big contributor in, but the rest of the way, like, he was just an extra body and played in blowouts, and then played in Maine. He was really good in Maine. But I think that his skill set of just like him as a lob threat, the athleticism that he has, the defensive potential that he has, and it really is potential at this point because we haven't seen it all come together to be like a really smart defender. I think if he's able to stop fouling and to stay on the court and to give you 20 minutes, like, people are going to be really surprised with what he can do. Him and Tillman are kind of like opposite players, like, in a way, like what their skill sets are and what their strengths and weaknesses are. Like, if you could combine them into one player, like his switchability, but then Nemias Keita's like athleticism and jumping and rim protection, all that. Like, if you could combine those two, it wouldn't be a veteran minimum guy, which is who we have. But I'm going with Nemi just because I watched a lot of him in Maine. I watched a lot of him in Summer League. And I feel optimistic that he's going to be able to be a real NBA level contributor. But I'd be happy with either of those guys stepping up to the plate. So time will tell.
Yeah, I said this recently on How About Them Celtics. I think Nemi has the biggest gap between his ceiling and floor next year. Not meaning like I think he'll get worse, but like the floor is he doesn't improve much. The floor is he like stays the same. His defensive instincts don't improve. His positioning is still off. He still fouls a lot. Still isn't screening without foul. Feeling is like he just is his abilities, like composure. Like, if he just stays in position on defense, if he just stays down, doesn't jump too early, if he can screen without fouling, like, he's a legitimate rotation center in the NBA. But again, that's why it's a ceiling and a floor. But I think the gap is so big. But I think it's a good pick. I think he's going to get just as many opportunities as anybody else behind Porzingis. I think they'll probably split it up pretty evenly between Tillman and Keita, depending on matchup. So I'm excited to see what he does.
Okay, so this is the grand finale of MVP. I think we're going to disagree on this one, actually. We've disagreed on every single one so far. I've liked your picks. They've been like my runner-ups, but we haven't landed on any of the same ones, which is good. It makes for more interesting discourse. Why don't you go? I know what you're going to say.
Tatum. Is that who you was going to say? It feels so lame because it's just the obvious pick because everyone is like, oh, it's just Jason Tatum. Like, that's the Celtics. But I truly think you could see Tatum improve even more than he did year to year this upcoming season. And the biggest thing for me is something that Tyler Rucker of No Ceiling said to me and Sam right after the finals. He goes, I feel like the weight of winning a championship being off his shoulders is going to make him play so much differently than he has in years past. Like, I feel like a lot of times this year and in years past, you've seen Tatum really press just in very niche big moments, right? Like he'll be like, I got to get the shot off. I got to do this. I got to do that. Like the pressure of knowing that he hadn't gotten over the hump when everyone thinks he should have, I feel like was almost just in the back of his mind, even if it wasn't a conscious feeling and decision, it was like subconsciously eating at him a little bit. And now that that's gone, like as stupid as it sounds, like he cut his hair, right? He's back to whatever. He's just like, all right, cool. I can do whatever they want now. Like I don't have anything else to prove to anybody. I'm just going to be able to play free. And so I don't even think it's going to be like, oh, he's going to score 30 points. I think he's going to average like 7 assists a game. I think his assists are going to go up. I think his rebounds are going to go up. I think he's going to lock in on the defensive end as well. If anything, I think his scoring numbers could go down and his efficiency goes up and he might take less threes. Like, I really think you're just going to see a more streamlined version of Jason Tatum that, while he might not get the like MVP love that everyone wants him to have because his scoring numbers could go down, I think he's going to impact winning at a much higher level than he has before. And that's saying a lot considering how much he impacts winning. So I'm very high on this season as a streamlined version of Tatum in terms of his passing, rebounding, defense. And I think that's what's going to make him the MVP again, because I think he has been for a while now.
You make a good case, and I agree with a lot of what you said. And I had him originally as my selection, and then I thought about him more. Um, this might be a bold claim, but I think Jaylen Brown is going to have like an insane year, like the best basketball we've ever seen from him. And I don't have that. This is like not even like basketball analysis because it's just hard. It's just all speculative right now. Obviously, they're both great in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I don't have that feeling that Jason Tatum is going to come out and do anything different than what we've seen in the past. I hope his shot's on. Like, that's the biggest thing. I would hate to have him go through like a season-long shooting struggle where now it's like he's just getting like Draymond Green guarded, where like he's just giving him threes all of a sudden, because he's not far from that. If he starts to shoot poorly for a few weeks after everything, like I could see people starting to dare him to. And
I don't think it would ever get to that point. But that maybe I'm just. It would have to go on for like another full season, I think, because like for as bad as he was in the playoffs and Team USA, like everyone knows Jason Tatum can shoot the ball. Like he's absolutely he's streaky, but if you get the wrong side of the streak, like you can't take that risk. I feel like, and that's what makes him so effective. And so I can't see
sub 30% from 3 on the year, like the way that he did in the playoffs, with all the weapons you have on that Celtics team and his ability to drive and everything, like. I can see people doing it just to mess with him a little bit. I don't like it, but I even felt like when the Warriors did it to Jaylen Brown, like I got what they were doing.
Yeah.
If you find something, you found something. Like watching Rondo get guarded, watching Russell Westbrook. I mean, seriously, watching Russell Westbrook get guarded, it's like it ruins everything for a team when he's on the court. He's thinking about it. He wants to show them that he can shoot, so he's taking bad shots that he wouldn't have even taken. I don't know. I'm just putting, I hope it's not the thing. I don't want to manifest that, but.
No, I know what you mean. I get it, but like, I feel like people are almost taking, not you or not people, because I mean, I've talked to Sam a million times. Sam is as big of a Tatum shooting hater as you can get. I feel like people are making almost too big of a deal out of the slump at the playoffs, because I truly believe it was just like the worst possible time for a slump. But like Tatum's gone through 20 game stretches where he shoots 30%. Like that's a normal thing. He did. Like I pulled up Basketball Reference, and the first thing I saw, November 17th to the end of December, he shot 30% from 3 on 8.5 attempts a game. Like it just happened to be the playoffs, and that sucks because it was a giant stage. But I feel like
really matter.
Exactly, and it didn't matter. And for what it's worth, those 18 games I mentioned where he shot 30%, he still shot 37.6% from 3 on the season. It was his best percentage since 2021. Like I think it's almost getting overblown a little bit, and I think the Team USA stuff, people are like combining into that when that was a different situation where he was like playing a role that he was never used to, and he was just completely like thrown off. I don't know. Maybe I'm just like a Tatum defender, because as I've been accused by in the comments plenty of times, but I'm not taking too much stock into the Tatum is a bad shooter thing yet. I need to see if he continues like for the next month of the next season, next X amount of games. I'll be like, all right, yeah, there's a problem now. And I'm not saying Jaylen Brown's a bad pick for MVP. Like based on everything I said, like I don't think it's a likely world, just because I think the shots are going to be similar to what they were last year. I don't think they'll take that big of a difference, but I could see a world where Jaylen Brown averages slightly more points, or at least on par points with Jason Tatum this year, if Tatum wants to take a step back in the department. But I only question it because I don't know how much they're going to try to change actively what they did last year when they so clearly worked, right? Like for as much as like these little minutiae we're talking about of, oh, change this, Tatum take less threes, Jaylen Brown be more aggressive, blah, blah, blah. Like they dominantly won a championship based on everything they did last year. And so I do think Jaylen Brown's a fair pick for MVP. I think he's going to have another great season. I think his playmaking is going to go up. I think he's going to lock in even more too. I just don't know how much room for differentiating we can get in the scoring column.
That's fair. I think that's fair. The one piece that has influenced my decision, and I'll just say I totally agree with you on the shooting slump thing. I thought that it was like we were discussing after every Olympic game, like we did a whole, the Garden Report post-game show, and we're breaking down, and I was like, at certain points, like he was like 0 for 2. Like how, like let's not 0 for 2 doesn't really
end of the world.
mean much.
It's done.
I also feel like because like not to bring up me playing basketball twice in one episode, but I also feel like because I've experienced it firsthand where it's like it's not a mechanical thing, it's like literally just do you have confidence or not. And I've seen my dad, who's like literally the best 3-point shooter I've ever seen, go through games where it's like all of a sudden he's over 10 and it's like everybody, if you had like a media analysis, which sure there was back in the day when he played, like people would be like, oh my God, what happened to shot? And it's like I find that whole, it's like my least favorite narrative about basketball is talking about people's shooting slumps and speculating and extrapolating and freaking out about it when 99% of the time, people, if they're a good shooter, you bounce back from it, right? Like, how many times have we seen Al Horford be, eulogized?
Look at the playoffs last year, the 2023 playoffs. Al couldn't shoot.
I remember 2024. I mean, there was up at the first 2 rounds, he couldn't shoot.
Yeah.
And then he turned it around completely.
Mm-hmm.
I remember in
100%.
Cleveland, he had missed like 20 in a row.
I know.
Talking
Yeah.
down.
Bad.
But in any case, I have Jaylen because I think that
fair.
He won MVP of the finals and conference finals. So like, I'm just kind of going with the flow of what we've seen of late, but also I think the Olympic thing is going to impact Jaylen better than Jason for 2 reasons. One, because again, from my perspective, from covering them, it seems to me like Jaylen Brown is somebody that has been more effective at harnessing rejection and frustration and actually being motivated by it. I haven't really seen that as much from Tatum. Like it doesn't seem like his personality as much. Again, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that maybe we're not aware of, but that's the impression at least that has been available to us. And I also think that Jaylen Brown didn't really get embarrassed this summer. Like he got a lot of fuel and attention and stuff, but he's gonna kind of be like, I want to prove all these people right that were with me and all these people wrong that weren't with me. Tatum was actually in a worse position in a sense. Obviously he has a gold medal and like in the long term, that's what's going to matter. But from like a narratives, like rejection standpoint, like he was all summer on ESPN with zoom ups of his face sitting there on the bench and like that same jump shot that he missed off the side of the backboard getting replayed. Like I feel like that can get to you more than just not making the team and everybody saying you should be on this team, and it just his personality. So I'm going with Jaylen slight edge, but I think they both probably have really good seasons. And the main thing is like I feel like everybody's like so excited about the fact, like I feel like keep seeing this dominant media narrative around like Charles Barkley and people saying like they're gonna, everybody's messing with Boston, they're gonna go out and show them. Like hopefully they don't go out and show them too much. Hopefully they just play basketball the way that they did last year. Because if they start to have like a revenge tour vibe, like it's probably not going to benefit the team too much. So, anyways, those are our picks. So I had Jaylen Brown for MVP, Neemias Queta for most improved, Sam Hauser for sixth man, Drew Holiday for defensive player, Derek White for clutch player, and you had literally all opposite picks.
Yeah, we didn't agree on anything, which is probably good. I had Tatum for MVP. I had Xavier Tillman for most improved. I had Jaylen for clutch player, Derek White for defensive player of the year, and Pritchard for sixth man. Right? I think that's all of them.
I didn't name Tatum for anything.
Yeah, you're a hater.
I know. I hope I don't get any death threats. So just kidding. That's only in the WNBA. I had to say it. I actually am going to do a WNBA focused episode, not this one. But in that episode, I want to say everybody has been telling me, oh my gosh, you can't handle the WNBA coverage. Imagine if you covered an NBA team. And I just want to say shout out to Celtics fans because I haven't seen anything like this of Celtics fans. But
no.
That might be too ambiguous in a statement. I guess I'll just say I enjoyed covering Celtics fans this last year. Talking to Celtics fans, that's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll probably have Jack back. We'll see. We'll see if he made the.
Whoa! We'll see.
The threshold. No, we'll have Jack back.
The audience engagement just goes all the way down. Like no one.
I know. Imagine I get like 4 views on this episode. I'm putting your name in the subject line so we can really A/B test.
No.
So we'll see. Leave a comment if you want to see Jack back or not. Just kidding. I actually don't want to open the door for that.
Or not.
No more online hate. Okay, Jake. Thanks, Jack, for joining. Maybe I'll join your podcast at some point.
Of course. We'll make it happen.
Is there anything
soon.
you want to plug?
I'm on Twitter, Jack Simone NBA. I feel like I'm doing that How About Them Celtics outro now. How About Them Celtics is my podcast and my written works at Harvard TD, but that's it. Thank you. Thanks for having me. This was fun.
Thanks for joining. Have a good one, everyone. I'll be back on Sunday. We'll do a live episode again. So